Welcome to On the Go with Celico, the podcast where we introduce tips and techniques for job seekers in Southeast LA. And now here's your host, Margene Clements.
Welcome to On the Go with Celico. Today you're going to hear part one of a two-part series about slaying the myths of older workers. We recently held a workshop where we discussed the myth versus reality of older workers. Enjoy the episode.
We're here to talk about slaying the myths. Getting rid of them, totally rejecting them, because I firmly believe that if you do that, so will everyone else. Meaning that job interviewer, that business, that employer, anybody around you that you don't want to have them look at you as nothing but old. What is old? What is old? Did anybody read the cover?
40 and up.
The government says that an older worker, not an old person, but an older worker is 40 years and up. That's really young. I mean, really, really young. Hey, I think 70 is really young, okay? Because you kind of have to as you get there. So 40 is really young. But when do you think that law was put into effect?
Mm-hmm. Well, because people were getting older with their health. So before in the 60s, they died off in their 59 or something like that, basically. So people are considered older in that respect, but they haven't readjusted in the workforce.
Yeah, they haven't changed the law. And just like Social Security, when they implemented Social Security, people only lived to be 55, 60, 65 was old. So 40 meant you only had a few more years maybe to work. People retired at 50. Well, that is not the case anymore. So even though it is considered a government definition, I think we can ignore that. All right, so despite what the government says, despite what sometimes other people might think, what do you think is old? What do you think is old? What's your definition of old? Okay. Anybody else? What's your definition of old?
Disabled.
Outdated?
I'm sorry, what?
Outdated?
Outdated? Sounds like a computer. Yes.
We have lost interest in life.
Oh my gosh. Okay, lost interest in life. Yes.
Having different types of wisdom.
Okay. Someone else, yes.
Mindset.
A mindset. Okay, anyone else?
A lack of self-worth.
Someone else, yes.
Carries traditions.
Or traditional?
No.
No? Different. Carries?
The tradition of the family. The tradition
Oh, yes,
belief
gotcha.
systems, they embody.
Yes. All right. And that's a great segue in both of you. Go for it. Go for it. Don't stop. Don't believe what anybody is telling you. You've got to go for it. Old is really a number. It is just a number. I hope I prove that every single day. I know there are people that wish I would retire, but I'm not going. I'm not gonna. And old is not an indication of how we feel or what we can do. Our choices are an indication of how we feel or what we can do. But just the word old is not. And let's replace the myth with some truths. And definitely go for it. I want to talk about some workforce myths, because you're all job seekers. So we want to talk about things that can happen in the workplace, or things that you think will happen in the workplace, or things that you think that people think. But before we do that, I kind of want to know from a few people, what is your truth? Not what you think others think. Now that, we've had a little bit of discussion, but what is your truth as far as aging is concerned? And repeat, not what you think other people think, but what do you think? Like, say, for instance, take myth number one, back here, myth number one, about being sick. All old people are sick. Are you sick? Are you unhealthy? Do you go to the doctor every time you turn around? So what is your truth about this aging process, getting older? It happens to everybody. Anybody? Yes.
Well, this is something that some of my friends and I have been talking about as we getting older, and it's kind of like it is what it is. We don't blame it on age. We don't blame it. It's just, it is what it is. I mean, I ended up with something that 7 doctors didn't know how I got it. And they were asking me how I got it. And I said, well, you're the doctor. You're supposed to be telling me. So it's nothing that I did wrong or ate wrong or, it just happened kind of a thing. But it made me disabled. It had to do with a bone infection in my vertebrae. But it's kind of like I plan to go back to work after winning my case with Social Security disability. And I'm not concerned about on the job, once I get the job, because I've always been a good worker. And it's kind of like my ethics would remain the same.
There you go.
You know what I mean? You just tell me what I need to do, what my job calls for, and I will make sure that that is fulfilled. So, to me, age has nothing to do with it. I'm still capable of doing so much.
And so your truth is, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
I like that truth. It is what it is. Yes.
I don't rely on current diagnosis to determine my future health. So a diagnosis shouldn't be the end, and keep fighting to live and change the outcome just because that statistics was somebody else's statistics. Doesn't make it my statistics.
Right. Yeah, in other words, don't give up. Just because somebody says something about you, or a doctor says you have this, or a psychiatrist says you have this, or whatever the case may be, don't just stop. You can't just stop. That's what my friend did. She just stopped. She stopped.
Gave up.
Gave up. Can't do that.
Look at people, they said there'd be failures like Einstein, when he was in school.
Yeah, he wasn't very smart. Yeah, exactly. Or people that are in car accidents and they say you'll never walk again. And they do. And they do. But you have to work really, really hard. We were in a car accident when my daughter was 10 and a half months, and her dad was hit. It was his side that was hit really badly. And they said, he would probably have to walk in a walker or whatever. And he was in his late 30s, I think, middle to late 30s. And with a lot of grunting and groaning. Trust me, I had to leave the house sometimes, but a lot of grunting and groaning and really, really, really hard work. He just, he walks like a normal person. So, he's got a steel plate in his leg knee, but, and every once in a while that bothers him. But, no, a lot of hard work, yes.
Well, let me say this in regards to our pride. Because I know a number of people that are older, and it's like they don't want to come out with that walker or use the cane, and they have their falls and break a hip because they were too stubborn to use their cane. But it's kind of like, for me, I'll use the scooter, I'll use whatever it takes to have my independence to get around, and so I value what I can do, what I'll still be able to do as long as I can do it.
Regardless of the walker.
Exactly.
Yeah. You get a pretty cane. Anyone else? Your truth. Not how you think somebody else thinks of you or old age, but your truth.
I have to say that what I'm about to say, I have the benefit of being in a special class called men. And society, I think, permits men to show their age.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Nevertheless, looking for a job, you could be discriminated against. And yet I refuse to cover up who I am. You know, it's like, you know, I'm not going to dye my hair. Now again, I know that what I'm saying, I have the benefit of being a man, but nevertheless, it's like, if somebody is going to judge me, it's like, no, you're too old. It's kind of like, shame on you, and wait till you get there.
Oh yeah, because young people think they're never going to get there. Oh boy, do they never think they're going to get there.
And
the joke's on them.
There's so much discussion these days about diversity, but I think it's all a lot of lip flapping.
Yep.
Because of all the conditions they put on who are we going to accept and who are we not.
Okay. Yes. I never hear the word of age as part of that diversity.
That's right.
Yeah, I never hear that. Good point. All right, myth number 1 as far as the workplace is concerned. Older workers don't fit in the 21st century energetic, fast-paced workplace. Can't keep up and don't want to work as hard as required. Yeah, right. Myth number 2, older workers are unwilling to share job knowledge and skills because they want to ensure their job security. Myth number 3, older workers cost more, are more expensive to recruit and retain. Okay, we can throw all those away too. We really, really can. Myth number 1, you don't fit in, you can't keep up. Going back to this young people thing, are there any really young people in here? Sometimes they're annoying, and I have a 27-year-old, so I can say this, okay? The millennials, they can get really annoying. Because they really do think sometimes that, they're the only ones that have this fast-paced, high-energy world that they live in. I hate to tell you this, but that fast-paced, high-energy world has always existed. We have, as older workers, 40 and over, we've always lived in that world, especially if you work in the private sector. And I'm here to tell you, Tammy and Vivian and all of us can tell you, we're not in the private sector, we're in a private nonprofit, but I am telling you, you got to be high energy, you've got to be enthusiastic. We move like lightning around here. We move as fast as we possibly can. There is no time to move slowly or to think slowly. So, this one just always boggles my mind. Because again, it goes back to a choice. You can be energetic, you can be enthusiastic, you can choose to be those things, or you can choose to be this and slow and not want to move fast and not want to keep up with what needs to be kept up with. Sure, you're going to get tired. So do young people. My daughter sleeps more than I do, but she also claims she works harder. So, because she's an athlete and I just sit at my desk. Whatever. So, and there's no difference. It's proven. Everything I have up here that sounds like numbers, it's all statistics. I just didn't want to bore you with lots of numbers and whatnot. But there's no difference between the hours worked by young people and older people. No hours whatsoever. In fact, especially with your millennials, and it's not a bad thing because they really believe in balance. Baby boomers did not believe in balance. You worked 60 hours, 70. You worked however many hours you needed to work. You just did that. And there was no balance in their life between the family and the home. I mean, and this especially is talking about men because back, in the 50s and the 60s, the men were the breadwinners, the women stayed at home. But then, all of that changed. But even still, baby boomers worked. They didn't care how many hours they had to work. They got the job. They just wanted to get the job done. Millennials, on the other hand, is a very different generation. And the generation in between them, too, Gen X, is a little bit different, too. But especially the millennials, they want their own time. When it's 5 o'clock, they want to leave. They want balance in their life. You can't blame them for that. So it's just a different mindset, too. But it doesn't mean that they don't work hard when they're working. It just means that when 5 o'clock comes, they're gone. They're out of here because they have something else to do, and they're going to do it. So it's a different personality, a different set of values, and a different way of living, when it comes to that too. So, older workers show greater motivation and engagement than younger workers. Do you believe that?
Back to a mindset.
Yes, personality.
You can get it through your family, your environment, your education, and whatever you choose to adapt. So you either have that mindset or
you don't
change.
Yeah. Yes.
I have a mentor. He's 84. He's very motivated, very engaged. He challenges the people in church. Come with us and feed the poor at Little Brown Church on 7th Atlantic. But he practices a holistic way of being and living, and he's been doing that many years. And he's my mentor. Maybe that's why I was drawn to him. But the excitement and he challenges, even in the face of adversity, atrocities, and foolishness, he stays close to what's been proven to help us grow through it and contribute to society, not just himself or the church, but all of them. So, when he show greater motivation, he's amazing. 84, and he's just involved in a lot, but he has a focus and a center there that it's amazing. So anyways,
I use the example I go back to, and this is a customer service kind of thing, and Tammy can probably attest to this too. We've talked about this, especially when she did her customer service class. In retail, you walk into retail stores and whatnot, and you're laughing. You know what I'm going to say, right? You have these kids. I'm sorry, you got these kids. They don't say hello. They don't ask you if they can help you. They're on their phone. They're talking to their co-workers. It's like, why are you here? I mean, to get a paycheck, but while you're getting that paycheck, could you be engaged in your job? Could you pay attention? Could you recognize the fact that somebody walked in the store?
These days they have to legislate this behavior with company policy. You walk in, welcome to Great Clips. It's just this kind of,
automatic.
It's just this rote behavior that you're going to be judged on. And, there's a world of difference between having your authoritative organization make you do something versus that you come to it from inside yourself.
Yes, thank you. That's what I was going to say. Even though I have noticed some changes, because for a while their customer service was bad everywhere. I don't care where you went; it just seemed like it was bad. And now I notice this rote behavior. They have been told something to say the minute you walk in the door. They don't look up. But they say it. And they carry it through, but they're not really and truly engaged or enthused about what they're saying and doing. And I have not quite figured out whether it's this particular generation thing or if it's just a young people's thing. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I can guarantee you that if I worked in a retail store, it may not be my dream job, but I wouldn't act like that. I just wouldn't. And I don't think any of you would either. So at this age, or probably when you were younger, I'm just guessing. But I do believe that we are much more engaged, much more enthusiastic when we're on a job because, as Bob said, it's coming from inside. We're not being told what to do. Yes?
I guess I can bring a different perspective.
Yes, please do, because you are younger. Sorry. I was waiting for you.
I'm absorbing, and yes, I believe I can see both perspectives, and I don't feel that I fit in to exactly the idea of the younger perspective either, and I'm not technically considered the older perspective, so I feel that I'm sort of exactly in the middle. And I have a background in child development and student teaching, not pursuing that at the current moment, but I feel that I had actually lived that, and I don't know if it was because I went to a certain school and then I taught in a different type of school. I went to like a private and then I taught in a public. Or if it's just, again, the different generation. But I feel that it also has to do with the whole intrinsic motivation.
Yes.
Like, please reward me, or you have to reward me to do something, versus I did a great job. That's its own reward.
Yes.
And I do understand everything that I'm hearing, that it feels it's true. That it just seems like, oh, I have to do this now, and why am I here when I want to be there and I have to put all this work in? And it's surprising that some of the job leads are saying, be alert.
Do I have to tell you to be alert?
Yeah, don't fall asleep on the job. Really?
Yeah.
That's the problem that the people are having. So, I feel that that's right in the middle, that I still felt I got the upbringing that, respect to all people, and it doesn't matter if your boss is younger than you,
or way older than you.
That doesn't mean anything. It's just they were there at a certain time, they brought certain skills, but everybody can be built up. So yeah, I feel right in the middle.
Well, you're in a good place, I think. Yes. As long as you think you're in a good place, you're in a good place. Yes.
Social media has contributed to that distraction.
Oh yeah.
People have, and not just the young ones, are on social media, on their phones, when they're someplace else. And they could be in your living room and you're socializing with your family and all generations, and they're texting each other, playing games, and there's no dialogue going on. So we're not communicating.
We're communicating differently. I've had to come to the conclusion that we're communicating differently. Because I can remember my daughter was in 6th grade and I had a car full of girls. I had about 6-7 girls in the car. And they were all talking, and they were all on their phones, and it wasn't texting back then, but they were all on their phones, and each one of them was talking to a different friend that was all a part of their friends, and then they were talking to each other about what their friends were talking about, or whatever, on the phone. I was just in shock and awe. I'm like, what? But they were communicating. It was just so different than, how I was used to communicating. And you know what, eventually, it's like, you can't beat them, join them. I go to dinner with my daughter, and I thought, you know what, if you're going to be rude and you're going to sit here and text your friends, I can do it too. Yeah, it gets to that. Can't beat them, join them. And it is a different way of communicating, and, I don't know. Pick your battles.
It is a better way of communicating, or it's not better?
I think it's just different. I think it's just different. Because I will tell you, there was a lot of talk about how this generation, these millennials, were not going to be able to actually verbally communicate. They wouldn't be able to get their points across. That that just weren't going to be able to do anything verbally. But I am here to tell you, like my child, she's a millennial, and her friends, they are so articulate. When I listen to my child sometimes, I want to cry because she is so articulate. I wish I had that. It's awesome. And there's another friend there, and they were raised together. They aren't sisters, but they're like sisters. When that child talks, and when she actually gets to going in print and text, or Facebook, whatever it is, she can just pour her heart out and express herself in a way. She should be a writer, So,
well, I think texting, you have to think before you text. You don't have to think before you open your mouth.
True. True. Good point.
Well,
I can think of an important newsworthy example that says otherwise.
Oh, he thought about what he tweets. He just goes ahead and tweets it anyway.
I think that's that's a myth. I think everything that a man does is calculated and it's intentional. Don't think otherwise.
We may not like it, or but that's a different story.
Just what you said at the beginning, you walk in, they'll say hello, they don't talk to you. It's all because they're used to just
they're doing
texting.
this.
So they don't have that skill.
They're more engaged. Oh, they've got it.
Yeah.
They're just more engaged
But it's not
and
good.
interested in doing something else. No, that's not good. On the job, it's not good at all.
But you carry it on.
Well, yeah, they do.
As long as you're not offering
They
majority.
forklift.
Yeah. Face to face.
Yes. No. They
customer
will.
could
They'll
be
sit all
dangerous.
together texting, and they're texting each other, and they're texting their
They text
friends,
each other in the backseat of
and
the
then
car.
oh, they're doing it at the table too.
So you don't know what they're talking about.
Exactly. So to test that,
You don't want to be hearing gossiping.
to test that theory, when it comes to paying the bill, start texting. Ignore the bill and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have something very important." Let them pick it up, and then we'll see how important we become. Because unless if you give them what they want instantly, they don't learn to appreciate you. If you're always sending the gift cards, if you're always paying the bills, if you're always giving, they don't appreciate you anymore or less than anybody else that gives them the next thing they want. So until I have a friend at the gym who told me they wanted to know what happened that they didn't get their Christmas gift card. So my friend who was rowing responded. She's one of the Celico customers, and she said, "Ask them. You're still waiting for your thank you card from last year." They want to know what happened. So the gift card got lost in the mail. In other words, maybe your thank you card got lost in the mail because they never got it. They never get it for 10 years. She decided not to send it, and they wanted to know how come they didn't get their gift card.
Yeah, and again, there are old people like that too. There are younger people like that too. That's a personality trait, a lack of character trait.
Training.
Yes, upbringing, training. Yeah, right. Yes.
But see, that seems like a lost art now. My profession was a counselor, working with all the different problems of the world. And I would forbid any of my clients to have their cell phones on or texting or whatever. We are going to talk. And they said, well, why can't I send you an email? Why can't I do this? And I said, because when I can hear your voice, and I know if you're lying or not. And I said, I'm trained a certain way, just like you're training how to do all this. And I said, but it's a lost art. How are you going to do an interview with somebody when they ask you questions? How are you going to learn how to respond, to speak? Are you going to say, wait a minute, let me do this real quick. What's your email?
Well, I go back to, again, despite the fact that these, the millennials do a lot of this, I know so many of them because of my child. That's the world I live in, and they can interview, they can express themselves really, really well. How they got that way, I don't know, because of all of this, but they can.
And I can respect that they have those skills to do that, but there's a time and a place. It's just like on our dinner table kind of a thing when our family gets together. No one has a phone at the table. No one is texting. It is family now.
Yeah, there is a time and a place. And I think that's kind of maybe the crux of it all. There's a time and a place for that. It's not a horrible, terrible, awful thing, because I'm really guilty of it. But there is a time and a place for it. And I get what I can't stand is you're having a meeting and people are sitting in a meeting on their phones. Wrong. You're in a workshop. I remember one time I just literally had to kick somebody, and I used to do the workshops way, 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 way back when. And I had to kick somebody out because he would not stay off of his phone. And he was not young. He was not young. And he was on his phone. And I just finally said, you're not engaged. You're not paying attention. You need to leave. because it's disruptive to everybody else, especially 10, 15 years ago. That was very different than right now. So we are not slow to catch on. I mean, if you were slow to catch on when you were younger, you're still going to be slow to catch on when you're older. And yeah, there's a whole lot of new technology, so on and so forth. But you just sit down, and if you're willing to learn it, you can learn it. You can do it. And you might be slow just because your mind's not there, or and you're not somebody like Bob, who is a genius with computers and on the computer and stuff. So he's going to catch on like that. I'm not going to catch on like he does.
But as you know, in my classes, I didn't require anybody to be a genius.
No.
Because the philosophy is everybody learns in their own way, in their own time.
Exactly.
And the expectation that you're not learning this quickly enough, I think, in my mind, boils down to a simple idea that many people don't understand. There's a world of difference between telling and teaching.
Oh, yes.
And it a lot of companies invest a lot of dollars in training staff, training technology, but that's just a lot of telling. It's not really teaching. Teaching needs to be individualized. Communication needs to be individualized.
And Bob is the master at that, really and truly, in his computer classes. When we first started the classes, I thought, how in the heaven's name can you have a class where you've got somebody that knows absolutely nothing, didn't even want to touch a mouse, to someone who already has some experience and has some decent knowledge? How can you have them all in the same room and move each one of them to the next step? But Bob did it. Bob did it. And it's because of that teaching style, too. First of all, he's patient. And he has a style and he has an understanding that people do learn at all different kinds of levels, no matter what age you are. Yes. Okay, myth number 2, unwilling to share knowledge. I love this one. I never did get it. What does being older or being on a job forever, so I mean, if you've been on a job forever, you're pretty much going to be a little bit older. What does that have to do with sharing knowledge with another person who's coming into the job new? It has nothing to do. It is such a personality thing. If you are someone who is continually threatened by other people, or if you are someone who is selfish, or if you are someone who has that, I call it that gotcha mentality. In other words, I guess if you're just somebody who's nasty, doesn't matter what age you are. And I actually learned that here at Celico. There are just people who do not want to share anything with you because they don't want you to be as good as they are, or to be better than them, or to shine, or whatever. I don't even know what goes on in the mind of someone like that. But it has nothing to do with age. Nothing to do with how long you've been on a job either. It just has to do with you. So that is a myth that shouldn't even exist in this older worker world. I've yet to know an older worker who would not share something with somebody else. In fact, I think it's kind of the opposite. I think we're more willing to share with other people, no matter what their age. You're grinning, Bob.
You're right. I'm just considering taking all these myths and doing a global, replacement. Everywhere it says older, we say younger workers are unwilling to share knowledge. This whole thing could be flipped around.
Yes.
I'll take that presentation on the road.
Okay, I'll let you. You know what? Like I'm ready to say again, I can quit this presentation because y'all got it. Y'all got it. And the other thing too about, not sharing knowledge is most companies will have some kind of a mentoring and a cross-training thing. Guess who they use for their mentor? Guess who they use for their cross-trainer? Somebody my age or, around there. Yes, Vivian.
On LinkedIn, I was reading an article that there are no more knowledge workers because there's the internet, there's YouTube, there are all these free sites. So that's out the window anyway. If you want to find out how to tie a tie, it's on YouTube. So
exactly.
It's out the window anyway. So if you want to share it, you can find it.
And that just goes back to, because sometimes I find myself defending the internet and defending social media, but my daughter, for something, she wanted to wear a bow tie. She was determined she was going to wear a bow tie. And I said, don't look at me, I can't even tie a tie. And so she got on her phone, and this was quite a few years ago. She was still in high school. She got on her phone and she found a YouTube, and she taught herself to tie a bow tie on YouTube. Now, let me tell you, I could look at a YouTube telling me how to tie a bow tie or a tie for 20 hours, and I still wouldn't be able to do it. It's a mind thing. But I was never so impressed. I thought, wow, what an age we live in.
The subject matter experts, to me, that's where you get the cross-training, mentoring programs. But you can't walk into a job with someone who's learned 20 or 30 years and expect them to share their expertise, because they're going to take you at a teaching level from patience and understanding where they are. That takes a whole lot of skill sets that you don't walk into to say, okay, now that I've built my career, I'm capable of teaching you and everyone else.
Oh, you're so right.
That's why I walk away and I shy away, because it can be considered too authoritative. It can be misunderstood if I step into wear the hat and wear that role and I want to teach something.
Well, yes, I mean, that goes back to skills. Not everybody is a teacher. Not everybody is a trainer. Not everybody is a communicator, no matter what age you are. And that goes to, management, making correct decisions about who should train, who should share that knowledge, and so on and so forth, And that, again, has nothing to do with age.
Thank you for listening to Part 1 of Slaying the Myths about Older Workers. Please join us for the rest of the conversation next time in Part 2 of the series.
Thank you for listening to On the Go with Celico. If you've enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. You can also download our app, available for free on Google Play and the Mac App Store. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back soon with a new episode.